My guest today makes his strings swing. Like some other guests on the show, actually, he wanted to be a drummer when he was very young, but that was just too loud, according to his parents. Yeah. Well, it worked out really well in the end. His guitar playing style pays homage to that of Django Reinhardt, and he's a frequent collaborator of Tommy Emmanuel, among others. When he plays, there's always a lot of action, a lot of excitement. All the really great musicians are just really nice, he also says. Well, we're going to find out during this episode, hopefully. Welcome to this episode, Joscho Stephan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, man.
Thank you. How are you doing, Joscho?
Oh, I'm fine. It's, as you can see, just before Christmas. So this is mostly the time when you slow down a bit as a musician. But there's a lot of work to do because I'm constantly touring all the time. And that means now I have to take care of some other stuff. We recorded already a lot of songs for my trio. So there will be a new trio CD next year. So I have to take care on the recordings now, editing stuff like this, working on the schedule, on workshops. You know, a lot of things are coming up in 2025. The whole year is almost booked until December next year. So there's a lot of work.
How does that feel for you? Something that the whole year is booked. Do you like it, or is it like also like, ooh?
I like it, to be honest, especially if you're a freelancer, because I think that's what your podcast is also about. Not just talking about playing the guitar, how to be a musician, become a musician or whatever. And I remember when I started to be a freelancer, it was always like, oh, there is a gig coming up next week and another one in 3 weeks, stuff like this. And this gives you a little bit more freedom if you know already that a lot of stuff is going on.
Yeah.
So I like to be booked in advance. Sometimes sometimes, but you know, stuff like this happens in life. Sometimes there's a big festival or something nice that you can't do, or you're not able to do it because there is already something else in your schedule, in your calendar. But I think this is a problem that I like more than to have nothing in the calendar.
Yeah, what happens if there is nothing? You get stressed, or like what happens with your creativity? I'm also curious about.
Yeah, the thing is, and I need to be honest about that, I would say within the last 10 years, for example, there was never a time when there was like a big gap without gigs or whatever. So I'm not really used to that situation. When Corona happened, of course, that was the first time that I thought, okay, now I'm just sitting at home. What should I do? And talking about creativity, I just had a look back then on Facebook, and I just watch out for other musicians. What are they doing? What are they offering? Most people wanted to do I do Skype lessons. We do like a living room concert, stuff like this. And I just thought, okay, I don't want to do the same thing that everybody else is already doing. So I just wait like 1 or 2 weeks, because I was constantly touring also then. And it was good to have a break. But of course you need to work, and I need to work. You know, I love to work. I love to be a musician. And what I did back then was to think in a more creative way. How can I do something that I can earn money with, but that I enjoy and that is interesting maybe for my following? And I just had the idea to do a recording just with Beatles songs.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I did this. I have like my home studio and recorded like 6 weeks in a row every day. And after 6 weeks, the whole thing was finished. So I keep myself busy if there is nothing, let's say, on the schedule. So I was never bored, let's say, or searching for an idea. There's always there. To be honest, I have too many ideas.
Yeah. Life's short, right?
Yeah. So sometimes it's like, oh, I would love to do this. I would love to do that. But once again, this is the part that you have to be also honest. You need time to be creative. But if you're touring a lot, I think like Tommy, then you need to find the right spots to be creative. It could be in a hotel room, for example, instead of just sitting there and doing nothing, just compose something or whatever. Because that's what people often think, like, oh, if you're traveling, you can't be creative. I think you just need to find the right spot to.
But it's also a mental spot, I can suppose, right? Because, for instance, for me, if I have to really write a long one article or book or something. I need to get out of home, but is that with you? How do you create that circumstance? But that's also a mental thing. I need to.
Yeah, you need to.
I don't need to, of course.
Yeah, it's a mental thing. It could be that when I'm at home and have some time that I compose something just because of the reason that I have time and think, oh, now is the right time to take care of a new song. Sometimes it's just the pressure that you need something.
Yes.
And the old, I love this old Duke Ellington sentence. I think he said once, I don't need time, I need a deadline. And I think that works for most of the musicians that I know. It's often like you say, oh, I want to finish this.
Yeah.
But if there is no pressure, it can take like 1 year until you finish it. But if somebody asking you to finish it until March, then okay, I better start to work now.
So how do you create those deadlines? Is there somebody in particular, or a record company, or are there other people in your life who can set those deadlines?
It just depends on what on, let's say, on what specific thing we are talking about. Let's say if we talk about, for example, there is the Gypsy Guitar Academy where we have every month a new lesson. Mm-hmm. So this is something that okay, if you need something every month, then you need to be prepared to. Sometimes we manage maybe to record 2 or 3 lessons. Then there is a break because I'm on tour. But I'm planning this already far ahead, like the schedule, so that we have enough time to be in the studio to get all these things done. If I do workshops, of course, because of the reason that I do workshops since almost 20 years, there is a lot of material, but I always try to, let's say, do new material also for people who often attended already to a workshop. So I have deadlines for that when I think, so that I think, okay, I need to be ready with, let's say, until the end of December so that I can send this in February to the people if the workshop is in July. So they have like 5 months to look up the material or not. It's never, I never force somebody to learn stuff beforehand because, that's the reason we do a workshop. But some people need material or want material to be prepared. Other people just say, okay, I just want to enjoy the workshop. I even don't open the Dropbox link.
Yeah.
And we'll see what will happen. But I think this is also part of what I think of my job. People often see music just as an artistic thing. I think it's more than this. It should be art, but it's also like doing a regular job. Sometimes people complain or musicians complain that people, have not enough respect for the job, of a musician. And I think you need to, respect the job by yourself. So it's of course it's the artistic thing that is very important, but also the logistic things and to be prepared. And there's a lot of stuff that you need to do as a musician these days.
It's interesting to me because it seems to be such different things, right? Creativity and business.
Yeah,
they are water and fire almost, right? But they need each other as well. So when did you start realizing this? Like, this is the way I should approach my musicianship.
I think as an independent artist, and that's I think what everybody is who is not like a big singer who is on television every day. So most of the musicians are independent artists in general, I would say. And I think the whole business changed within the last 20 years. I'm 45 now, so I'm somewhere in between what is really interesting. Sometimes I see like younger musicians in their 20s. They are more used to, let's say, social media and all this stuff than my colleagues who are maybe like in their 60s or 70s already. They say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with Facebook and Instagram and stuff like this." And I'm somewhere in between. And but the thing is, I'm still interested in learning new things or trying new things out. There's stuff that I think maybe this is not interesting for us at the moment. For example, people already ask me about TikTok. We do Instagram, we do Facebook, we have a big YouTube channel, stuff like this. And that helped a lot, of course, to get more famous or more known. but it's a lot of work too. It has nothing to do with to be creative is one thing, to have also the, let's say, material, the content, the creative content. But on the other side, to deal with all this stuff or to see the whole thing as a job. That's what I always tell people. I was not just interested in playing the guitar. I like the whole thing, to be a musician in general. That means, I did booking for myself. I'm preparing my workshops. I do recordings. I can edit. I can, I like the whole process. I know there are some players, they just want to play the guitar and they don't want to deal with anything else. But that was never my cup of tea, because I was more interested in the whole thing. First time when I was in the studio, I was asking, what is this? What can I do here? So when I use this knob, what will happen then? I was always interested in the whole process. I think even when I was like 10 years old, or 9 or 10 years old, I already got my first 4-track recorder, a Tascam port or something. Because I did my recordings playing the rhythm guitar, playing the bass by myself, when I was 9 or 10. I was always interested in doing recordings by myself. And also the business side, I did an education when I was like 16 years old, because I didn't study music. And it's the old story, because my father said, do you know what? You can be a musician, anytime you want. But, if you have an education, something like this, something that is safe or secure, you know what I mean? What do you think about this? So I started to work like in an office, did an education. But in the beginning, I just thought maybe it's uninteresting, but it helped a lot to pick up the phone, talking to people. I learned.
It's a skill also.
I learned typewriting.
Yeah.
Even just these simple things, like if you're able to answer your email and you can typewrite with 10 fingers, it's much easier and faster than if you have to search for every letter. And I learned a lot of stuff there that in the beginning I wasn't really aware how important these skills are later on if you want to be a freelancer, because this is stuff that you don't learn at the university if you study music. That's what a lot of people telling me now, younger students that sometimes I do workshops or classes with. And I did just a class with young musicians from Hamburg. And of course, we talked about arrangements and stuff. And we did like a few hours. And then the last hour they asked me, so could you tell us a little bit about the business side of music? Because it's still like, this part is not really existing if you study music. So, and this is, I would say, one of the most important parts, what to do after you finish studying music.
Because it comes with a lot of insecurity, I can suppose, right?
Yeah.
If you're a musician.
Yeah. But the thing is, there are a lot of jobs where you just study and think, okay, and after that, there will be a company that hires me and I have a job. And so as a musician, there's maybe just some orchestras if you do classical stuff. And you need to be very lucky to get a seat there. And otherwise, I think most of the musicians need to be a freelancer, and they need to take care if they want to teach, if they want to play, if they want to be a studio musician or whatever. But to get to work is in the beginning, of course, the most important and hardest part.
Hey, I'd like to rewind a bit and go to young Joscho. You just mentioned I was 9 or 10. I already had a 4-track. So you started playing guitar when you were 5, 6 years old, right?
Yeah.
How did that feel?
I remember that I was always attracted by music. My father was playing in today you would say like a top 40 band or cover band or whatever. Maybe you would say oldie bands today, because they mostly play like Beatles songs and Santana, stuff like this. But again, when I grew up, this was still like very popular music. And so I was not, let's say, or I didn't listen to jazz or classical music in the beginning, because I didn't grow up like that. I grew up with this kind of music. And I remember my father was doing this for fun, more or less. And, so always when he was playing with his band, I often just watched the rehearsals when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So I was attracted already by music. That's what my parents, of course, found out. I think I got a Höfner guitar from my father when I was like 4 or 5, but that guitar didn't survive.
No?
So this is one of the worst nightmares. What
happened?
This is one of the stories I think I never really told somebody, because it's still like a nightmare, because I can't really remember what I did, but I think I did something so that the neck broke. But I think for years I just thought, okay, it wasn't me, somebody else did it. Because I was so young that I can't and still today I can't really remember. So this was before I can really even imagine
but
something.
If you're 4, I have a 4-year-old son.
Yeah.
And I think I told this before in a podcast, but I showed him a video of Mike Dawes. And then he started banging the guitar, and he thought that's the way you should play guitar.
Don't show Mike Dawes videos to people.
Yeah, but a guitar can easily break if you have that attitude of a 4-year-old.
16 years, I would say.
Yeah. So, okay, that nightmare was gone. And what do you think? Okay, there's never going to be a guitar.
And then it got more serious. And, really, I wanted to be, I remember that I wanted to be a drummer.
Yeah.
And, I was attracted by drums, percussive things. And, the old story that you told already, like, it's loud. It's a drum set is big. It's loud. The neighbors stuff. Then, after 3 weeks, maybe no interest any longer. Then you have to set it.
But for a young boy, a drum is such an appealing instrument, right? Because you have instant gratification.
Yes.
Like you bang it and it's like result instantly.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the appealing thing?
I'm not sure. I think if you really listen to my guitar playing today, it's still like very percussive. I think I was attracted, some people are attracted by, let's say, more sensitive stuff or whatever. I always loved the more rhythmic stuff. Yeah. And, long story short, my father just thought it's better to, let's say, that I get a guitar for Christmas, because he was able to play and thought he can show me some stuff to see if there is talent or interest. And so I started when I was 6, and I remember maybe the first half year I was just noodling and playing around with a guitar, like with a toy. And I remember, and my father was never really like, let's say, putting pressure on me or whatever. But I think after a half year, he started to get a little bit annoyed and said, okay, so now do you want to use it as a toy or you want to learn a song? And I said, okay, I want to learn a song. And I think we started with Beatles tunes, because that was the stuff that my father knew how to play. And I started with chords and with rhythm guitar. And of course I wanted to be a singer, but if you listen to my voice right now, there is absolutely no range. So that I stopped singing when I was like 13, and then I concentrated more on let's say on my technical skills and stuff like this. But I was always like a very good guitar player, even when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. And
so how did it feel? It came like, okay, you're instantly comfortable on the instrument, or?
I think so. Of course, everybody knows when you start with the first D chord, it hurts. But after maybe
F chord,
let's start with the D. So, but after like a week, it was fine, and then I played like an A that was maybe easy, and then E also. Then you start with the G. I think then the first bar chords, but it was just like I needed to work on stuff like this, and I was really quick with.
So already when you were that young, you realized, I just have to work.
I was quick. I was really quick. That's what my father always told people when they asked him, so how did he get that fast? And so he said he was always like a fast player and a fast learner. He said, as long as I can remember, when he was like 6 years old, I just showed him a few songs, and within 2 weeks, he played my whole repertoire. And that was the reason that my father went with me to the local music school. And back then it was mid-80s. Of course, there was just classical lessons available. That was the reason I picked up the classical guitar, because there was no other way to, not like today where you have a lot of private music schools and you can choose any style you want. So I started with classical stuff just because of that reason. And I never really, even if I don't play classical guitar, it's not like that I think, it would have been better if I had started directly with jazz or something else. I think it was a good education also by that time. We worked a lot on the left hand stuff to use really all 4 fingers, what is often the problem for a lot of rock guitar players, for example, because I played a lot of rock music back then.
Yeah.
The pinky is mostly not used in any of the songs. What is not a problem, but it's good if you if you
your
can
5
use
fingers, right?
Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah.
And even if I play a little finger style intro today, I'm just able to do this because I learned also to pick with the right hand the classical stuff. Mm-hmm. So what is not that far away from, let's say, the Chet Atkins finger style or whatever, because even if it's different music, the technique is more close than to play with a pick, of course. But I did the classical lessons maybe for 4 years, something like this. I won also some competitions, like these youth competitions, even if that was never really my kind of music. And what I found out already at this young age, that there must be something else than just playing the notes that are on the sheet. I was not really good at reading music because I was very young. And I remember that my teacher back then, he found out that I was more fast, looking on his fretboard and copying what he's doing than to, reading the music. So I was always more like somebody who's using the eyes and the ears instead of reading music. So at the end, it was more like he shown me the tunes or the pieces, and I was able to play them. And I remember that I played a very difficult Bach piece and won some first prizes with that. And after I won the prize, there was like a big concert here in my hometown, and I had to play the piece again. And I tried to remember everything because it was like 8 pages or whatever, and I was like 10 years. And so I played the whole tune, and I remember that my uncle went in, and I saw my uncle, and I forgot where I am. And I would say every other kid, maybe with 10 or maybe I was 11, would have stopped the whole thing. But I continued playing, and I just improvised something until I remembered and came back. So nobody really noticed what was going on. But I just thought, okay.
Yeah. But you must have felt comfortable enough because you must have really owned not just the piece, but just the whole vibe of that piece to make a switch. Like, okay, now I'm just going to freewheel.
I played something freely that, let's say that fitted somehow into the piece, and I ended it the correct way again.
You know how you felt afterwards? Like, okay.
Bad.
Yeah?
Really bad. Because this was, just my first experience that there is something like improvising in here. You know what I mean? Because for me, it was just, I messed up.
But that's a cool subject because if you, for instance, Julian Large told me like that there's no really such thing as a mistake when you're making jazz music. You just have to dare.
That's
you just have to communicate and play. So was that your first realization? Like, okay, it can be more. You said there's more than just the notes on the sheet.
Yeah, it to me it was like, okay, I felt always pressure when I had to play classical pieces. Because what I just noticed was if I have to play everything exactly the way how it's written, I don't feel comfortable.
That must be stressful. I can imagine.
Right? I played a lot of classical festivals with my Gypsy Swing Trio within the last 20 years. And to be honest, I saw a lot of the classical players because I'm still very interested in classical music, especially when I'm at the guitar festivals to see all these great players. I know Pavel Steidl or Agnello Desiderio, Zoran Dukic, these guys, I met them like 50 times, and I love these players, and they're great players, and they play this kind of music the same way as I play gypsy jazz. You see, they're always above everything. And, if I play like music where I can improvise, I never have a problem to do that. And they do the same thing if they play their classical pieces. But often I saw players, if they're not in that league, where I was stressed even listening to classical music, because I think it's a music with a lot of pressure because it's still like everybody knows the tune. And if there is a mistake, it's a mistake. It's different than in jazz, as you said already. And, but anyway, I think, also, if you play jazz or rock music and you're more like an improviser, of course, there are also mistakes. I think there is more than, let's say, just to say, oh, there are no mistakes. You need to be a very good musician to find out, oh, this was not really what I planned.
But it's also about how do you deal with that, right?
Yeah,
with that moment.
In that moment, I was really like disappointed that it happened. And it was like already at that young age, I started to think, is this the right music to continue with, classical stuff, or should I do something else? And I was playing, of course, rock music still. And so I went back to the rock music. And what happened then was that I lost a little bit the interest of learning also rock guitar solos note by note. Mm-hmm. And I think around the same time, my father just asked me or told me, because we played together, it was before we played like gypsy jazz, we played like rock music or blues or whatever. And he asked me to improvise. And I just, asked him, said, what do you mean by improvise? He said, yeah, just play what you think and the right notes and just try to do stuff like that. And I'm very glad that he asked me to do this because I was very young. Mm-hmm. And what I found out when I do workshops today, and a lot of the people who attend to the workshops are in the 50s, in the 60s or whatever. And if they never really improvised, and I asked him the same question as my father, said, just play what you think. It's more like people have this problem that they are not like a young kid. You're always afraid of mistakes. What I just found out, if you're just like a kid, you don't care about the mistakes because you just try things out. And so I'm really glad that I started with the improvisation with trying to improvise when I was like 10 or 11 years old. Because you play a note and you think, that doesn't fit. The next time you don't play that note. And I think this is the first idea of learn how to improvise.
It's like mastering a language, I suppose, right? Because we're talking, it's constant improvisation in a way, right?
It's, and what we do is even harder because I'm not a native English speaker, and you too, and we try to, let's say, find our way for a conversation as good as possible, sometimes translating, what would I say if I would answer in German. Yeah. So the whole thing is like an improvisation. That's what I tell people very often that I say, okay, it's the whole life is like, or the whole language is, of course, you know the words, but you never really planned word after word, because I never really know what will be your question. I can't I
don't know it yet either.
You know what I mean? I can't, let's say, prepare the answer if I don't know the question. And this is the same with music. And it's just mastering, as you said, a language. And maybe the blues language is a bit simpler than playing like modern jazz, of course. But anyway, I love both. What a lot of people do, if they say, oh yeah, but this is blues, I play jazz, it's more educated. I love B.B. King, and John Coltrane is great. And you know what I mean?
If it's a story, if it's a good story,
yes,
then it can go in any language.
And people often, I'm known as a virtuoso, and even here, people sometimes think if you are somebody who's playing also fast or is able to play fast and has some skills, I still love to listen to Santana, but I also love to listen to George Benson, who's maybe on a different level if we talk about the technical skills. But there is this video where Benson is playing with Santana. I think they play Breezing together. There's a YouTube video. And if you see these comments, I think it's laughable if people try to compare these two players. They are completely different. And that's the reason both of them are very famous or well known, because both have an own idea of what they are doing. And it would be absolutely boring if Benson would try to play as Carlos Santana or the other way around. Yeah. And this is not what music is, let's say, for me, that everybody needs to have the same technical level or everybody has the same kind of music. So I like to listen to a lot of different genres or different players. And I think this is something that you still hear in my playing. And this is also my story already that I told you. I started with Beatles, then classical stuff, then back to rock music, playing more blues. before I discovered Django, I was like 12 or 13 years old. So, of course, I can't play authentic as other gypsy guitar players, and I don't want to, because it would be like hiding the roots of the other stuff that I listen to.
That was another thing I'm curious about. So I know my next question.
Yeah.
It comes naturally because Django Reinhardt, you said I'm 13, 14 when I discovered him. For all gypsy jazz players, he's a very important person, right? Or a musician. First of all, can you explain what is so appealing to his particular style of playing?
I think, and you know, I'm always really careful if people asking, or let's say making a list of the best guitar player in the world. You know, we all know these lists. It's always the same names because it's just the people that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do, you know, because not a lot of people know maybe who is Lenny Breau or Birelli LeGrand compared to Keith Richards. You know, and once again, I love Keith Richards playing, but I love also Birelli LeGrand's playing. So who's the best is always a strange question, but I think if we talk about a guitar player who inspired people from every genre and was so far ahead of his time, I think Django is still number one to me. As somebody who is still playing gypsy jazz, of course, with his own voice, hopefully that's what I try to do. I still think that Django is maybe the best guitar player of all time, or one of the best in the top 10, really, if we talk about people who inspired other people.
But what makes him the best to you? What do you feel when you listen to him?
The thing is, I listened a lot to Django within the last 3 months, half year again. Sometimes you don't listen like 2 years or whatever. And you know, I listened to his first recordings with Grappelli a lot the last 3 months. And I think it's just this. Yeah, he's so complete with everything. What I sometimes I would not say miss with other guitar players, but you know, it's more like just a guitar player. The whole idea of his music or his playing, the phrasing, he had all these technical skills, but on the other side, there is so much, he's sensitive when he's playing. There is melody. There is a lot of, again, rhythmic things are going on that I really like. And, I think that he was far ahead of his time if you listen to what he was playing already before everybody else was playing it.
There's a lot of life in his playing, right? Is that
and just if we talk about the guitar, Django was really the first guitar player as a soloist. If you listen, he did octaves, for example. He played double stops. There is like a finger-styled song, if you listen to Tears, where he's playing the stuff just on his own in the beginning. He was a jazz player. He was somebody who improvised. He changed his style within just the 20 years that he was playing, from a, let's say, swing guitar player to a more modern bebop style player. And he did a lot of things that I didn't heard from any other jazz guitar player at that time. For example, he's doing bendings, and he's also doing bendings on two strings, like a rock guitar player, where he's playing, let's say, I think on Blues Clear, he's playing the G on high E string, and then he's playing maybe the F or F sharp, I'm not sure, on B, and is doing the bending, so like a rock guitar player. And I think he played already everything that is possible from artificial harmonics. You know, he did already everything on his recordings, but it was always not like showing off. It was always music, and I think that makes him so unique.
You said you mentioned I try to find my own voice. Obviously, this gypsy jazz guitar style is very, very heavily based on tradition, and it goes from father to son in many ways, right? So can you elaborate a little bit on finding your own voice in a style that's also built on tradition as well?
I think what I just with playing this kind of music, I started when I was 16 with my first trio. So I play gypsy jazz almost like 30 years now. In the beginning, I tried to be more traditional, playing more the, let's say, Django Reinhardt stuff, the Django Reinhardt licks, the typical stuff. But I was lucky enough to play with people like Tommy Emmanuel, for example. So I met a lot of different musicians and I learned a lot from playing with these guys, learning different stuff, different ideas, how to play music. And it was interesting. I was talking to Stoffel Rosenberg and he was telling me the same thing. He said, I learned the most the last 20 years playing with different musicians because you get new ideas or stuff. And, but what I just thought when I saw Tommy, I thought, wow, this is great what he's doing. A concept of this, doing this like in a gypsy swing way would be great to have a versatile program, a versatile set list, doing own stuff, doing traditional stuff, doing maybe pop songs or songs from classical music or rock songs or whatever. So I'm not, once again, even if you see the set list that I do, it's with Hey Joe, for example. We play Jessica by the Allman Brothers. We do own stuff. We do Rondo alla Turca by Mozart, stuff like this. I always thought I love to entertain people also. And, because once again, I know people say, oh, I just want to do this because it's art. I can't play like a rock song. Other people just do cover music. Other people, and I don't want to have all these niches. I just want to do what I want to do. And I think that's the way to be that's somebody. You know what I mean? Because, and how older I get, I didn't care a lot about things that I maybe cared when I was like in the 20s. I know from a lot of people who studied music that they just needed a few years to build their own personality because they had like teachers who told them different things and they said, oh, you can't. I know from a lot of people who played or love gypsy jazz, if they studied jazz, that some people told them, this is not real jazz. You have to play like this guy or like that, or you have to play fusion or you have to play modern. And so people sometimes they were afraid to start playing gypsy jazz just because of the reason that somebody told them it's not modern enough. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and if somebody's telling me, oh, you can't play a blues lick in a Django Reinhardt tune, I say, I can because I did. And you can, it's on the other side, of course, this is just a natural thing. I think there is no chance to play a music that everybody loves, even if you're the Beatles. I know people who say, oh, I don't like the Beatles.
I think actually interesting. Is it possible to play music that everybody
You know
loves?
what I mean? And this is what I sometimes think that some people believe that they have to follow a structure or whatever, because otherwise they can't play, let's say, this genre or that genre. So that means you have to behave like this if you want to play modern jazz, or you have to behave like that if you want to play gypsy jazz. And so I never saw it like this. I'm still a big fan of Stoffel Rosenberg, who was a big inspiration when I was like 16. He's more traditional player, I would say, but he always had this elegant sound and touch with his playing that after a few notes, you notice directly, oh, this is Stoffel. Then on the other side, you have people like Birelli that I met a few times, and we know each other very well. He's so interested in different kinds of music, playing bass like Jaco Pastorius, playing bebop or whatever. So he found his way out of just playing gypsy jazz. And still for him, it's sometimes a problem, but that people still see him as a gypsy jazz guitar player, because he's so much more. And he was one of the first who maybe found out that there is not just a thing like you're just allowed to play one thing.
But that must be liberating, right? To feel that anything basically goes. One player You kind of also drew into this gypsy jazz style. It's John Petrucci, right? He spoke very highly of you.
Yeah.
And he said like, "Whoa, I discovered this whole new thing," so to say. And he's featured on your new album as well, right?
He will be on our next album. And I was at his guitar camp, and I met him just a few weeks ago here in Cologne. He was playing with Dream Theater. We were there with the guys, with my trio, to visit him. And I think it's because of the reason I never really, what I like about myself, if people ask me, not about talking about my playing, what I tried, even if you see my Gypsy Guitar Academy channel or the YouTube channel that we have, I try to don't be like that. I want to be more wide open. And I just think if two people have a guitar, then there must be a chance to play something together.
Yeah.
Even if one guy is playing gypsy jazz and the other guy is playing rock, or one guy is playing classical music and the other guy is doing pop music, or one guy is a flamenco player and the other one is, it's just music. It's just a few notes. And that's what I try very hard with the YouTube channel. In the beginning, we had more or less just gypsy jazz players as guests. But, then you think, okay, we need other people that we invite to our channel. Of course, the usual names like Tommy, Emmanuel, Richard Smith, people where they are also great improvisers. But I try to involve people like Sophie Chassé, great player from Germany. And she did one of her songs and I just did this improvising part. And it was like something that is really special because it's unique. A lot of people, or let's say there are not a lot of people who try to do stuff like this. We had now a classical guitar player with Nadia Kosinskaya. We did this Tico Tico version. I played with three great German guitar players, Bruno Müller, Daniel Stelter, and Thorsten Gutz, all more from Thorsten is more like the Benson thing, and Bruno is somewhere in between. Daniel is like a great guitar player who's playing jazz music, pop music, whatever. And I always try to play with musicians who are not just gypsy jazz guitar players to keep the whole channel more wide open. And I think this is what, back to the question, attracts maybe then a John Petrucci a bit more to what I'm doing, because it's for him, or let's say for somebody who's doing rock music, you see a lot of rock and blues elements in my playing, and then they find out about gypsy jazz, and then of course you can search for more. That's what I always tried, and I hope that it works, and it looks like it works.
So you're basically a door towards gypsy jazz for rock players also.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is that obviously John is a player, very skilled, high level.
Yeah.
You too. So there must be a situation that you learn from each other also, right? Can you elaborate a little bit of like what in his playing is appealing to you?
Yeah, it's I saw him playing first at the camp in Florida where we were together. So there was the John Petrucci Guitar Universe. I was part of that. So I was let's say, the guy who is, the strange, strange guy on the list, because they were just like a lot of prog rock guitar players, stuff like this, and then they had me as an acoustic guitar player, and they do it every year. What is good? I think Andy McKee was part of this, and I think Mike Dawes is on the next camp. So what is cool that they try Dreamcatcher events, and all the players try to always involve also other, and this is what I like, to be more wide open. And so I was playing there, and John played, I think the next day or the last day, his show. And I loved his playing, because what I liked about his playing, that it was not just like technical playing or whatever. There's a lot of, melody in his playing. I love the way how he phrases and stuff like this. So we talked about a lot of things, and it was interesting. He asked me mostly about my right hand technique, because the gypsy swing right hand technique is absolutely different. And I was really surprised, because he's a great player and he's a technical monster, but he was still like, I'm still searching for what can I do with the right hand. And this is what I like about all these players. It don't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. If you're together in a room with a bunch of guitar players, great guitar players.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's asking questions
Yeah.
to the other player. It has nothing to do with, oh, I'm on that level, or my name is bigger, this guy. You know, that's what I like about really big or great musicians.
But it's all about curiosity, right? Because you said when I was young, I was already very curious to find out about not just playing guitar, but like the whole business. Is that maybe the characteristic that's super important to achieve that level?
I think if you reach this a certain level, that you don't reach this by, let's say, being not interested in anything. You know, you have to be, the fire still needs to burn all the time. I was playing with John Jorgensen, who I love. He's a great player who played, I think he did bluegrass. He played country music. He plays gypsy jazz. He was in Elton John's band. And I asked John to do a YouTube video with me when I was in New Jersey at the Frank Vignola guitar camp. And we played Viper Stream. And it was really interesting. After we did, you know, I was really thankful that he said, yeah, let's do this, you know, because I have a lot of respect for all these players. And so after we shot the video, I think we did like 2 versions of Viper Stream and that's it. And then he said, I have a question for you. There's this one lick. Listen to this. And he, you know, he's played it. What do you think how he is playing this lick? Was a gypsy swing lick. And we listened to it. I said, I think I would play it like that. I said, that's interesting because I would play it like this. And, you know, I'm not sure how old John is, maybe in late 60s or something like this. So that means he's still like the little kid when it comes to learn something about the guitar, a new lick or a new idea or a new technique. And John Petrucci is like that. Tommy Emmanuel is like this. I'm often, you know, touring with the Transatlantic Guitar Trio, what is a great guitar trio with Richard Smith and Rory Hoffman. And it's, you know, these are musicians that you can learn so much things from if you really listen to them. This is the best education that you could get to play with guys like that. You can't learn anything like this on any university of the world.
Keeps your mind young.
Yeah,
I suppose. I think the world or approaches as a kid would do.
Yeah. And you know, I think this is the most important part. People often ask me, do you play 150 gigs a year? You do a lot of workshops. So I'm away basically more than 200 days on the road. And it's still like, you know, we do the podcast now, but later on I have a gig. And I tell you what, it will be like my first gig again. I will love to play that gig. You know what I mean? There's always like a situation when you have a headache or maybe the situation is not that nice and still you need to be. That's what I just think. That's the other side. It's also my job to be professional on stage. If people pay money to see me play, I want to give them like also, everything that is possible so that they have a nice evening listening to my music. But, you know, I always try to enjoy it as much as possible by myself. And this is what I love, especially if we talk about Tommy Emmanuel. If Tommy is going on stage, you always think, oh, this must be his first gig because he's enjoying it as hell. And I think this is something that you need to keep, this spirit.
Can you learn that mentality, you think? Or does it have to come naturally?
To me, it's naturally. That's what I, you know, maybe it has to do with sometimes we started with the childhood and, you know, now we're in the,
we're now.
we're now.
Yeah.
And, so if I just see the last 40 years, there were maybe some times where I thought, wow, I need to stop. But that was always like after you play the gig that was maybe not successful, you know, especially when I was younger, when you start to build stuff, it could be there is a gig that just 20 people in the audience, stuff like this. And they think, I stop it now because, you know, it's so much work. But, you know, I never stopped it because when I was back home and, you know, the first, let's say, disappointment was gone, maybe the next day somebody's calling you, can you play next week? I said, yes, of course. You know what I mean? It's always like you forget the gig that didn't went well, when you play the next one. Yeah. So, and that's how it felt for me. Always like, I need to do this and I love to do this. So I never needed to learn stuff like enjoying this, because it was always my goal to be a musician. With 6 years, I couldn't tell you, maybe back then I wanted to be a Beatle, like everybody, but I didn't, when I was like 6, I wouldn't imagine that I would be like a guitar player with an acoustic guitar who's touring all over the world in his 40s. But I knew back then that I wanted to be a musician, and it was not clear in, let's say, what kind of career or what I will do maybe 30 years later. So after I did my education and I got back to be a freelancer, I think this also helps. If you did something, and I didn't hate it to be in an office, that was okay for me. It was, I did my job, and in the weekends I played some gigs. But the thing that I did on the weekends, that was what I was living for.
I see it in your face.
You know what I mean? I was not living for doing the day job that I didn't hate. It was fine for me.
Yeah.
But
I can relate. I'm a freelancer too. There's
how it is.
This particular part, I love doing these conversations. So it's just like a gig.
Yeah.
And there's other things I do. I don't dislike them, but it's not always.
But like that was. And still is. I'm just thankful. I'm thankful. Often it sounds like, come on. Yeah, of course there are bad days, or, you have a long travel, you have something. But, I think we never really behaved, bad on stage. Even if it was a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. And this is, I know that some musicians are not like me or like Tommy. If they're pissed, then you can see that I'm pissed. And everybody has, like, as I said, has a bad day. But as soon as you're on stage, I think everything changes. As soon as I hit the first chord or the first note, I'm totally there and try to do whatever is possible. There was a situation that I had, I think it was this year, with an organizer who really treated us like bad. And, I said, do you know what? I think I pack my stuff and I leave. And he was like, you can't leave. I said, I can't leave. It's, I play like 200 gigs a year, and everybody knows if I leave, then there must be really a problem, Mm-hmm. And, I started packing the bags, and, so at the end, we played, and I said, there's just one point, I don't do it for the organizer. I just do it for the 200 people who already paid for a ticket, because it would be a shame for them to, let's say, go to the venue and we're already gone, and that was the reason I played the gig. And I said, I will never play that gig again, because, I don't need an organizer like this. And but at the end, I still played the gig, because I think this is what I worked on for 30 years, that people attend to our shows. And now when they attend, it would be not fair to not play for them.
Hey, you said the word thankful. I'm very thankful to Joscho Stephan for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks
for this conversation.
Thanks.
Check out your new album next year. It's coming up. When exactly? You know that? Sometime.
Sometime.
2025.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up. Definitely the trio album will be out next year. But as I told you, it will be a pretty busy year already. So I know that in 2025 there is almost every month is booked. So it looks like we're going back to America. There will be an Australia tour. We play in Italy. We play in Spain. We play in Poland again. A lot of workshops. A lot of gigs in Germany. So listeners, you know what to do. Go see Joscho Stephan live.
That would be great. Hey, thank you. And listeners also. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.